Hello and welcome to From the BOLN. This is the final debrief of the season. Burnley finishing second in the Championship with 100 points despite impressive victory at home to Millwall. Leeds United getting that last gasp stoppage time winner to spawn a win at Plymouth and take the title. Left Burnley fans a little bit bitter a little bit at the end, but a sweet season overall. Andrew Greaves and Justin Connolly were at Turf Moor and are with me now to discuss everything that went on yesterday on and off the field. Greavesy, I mean, as a performance, that was one of the best. That second off, we absolutely battered them, didn't we?
Yeah, superb, and I think it's these last few weeks of the season have been really enjoyable. And I think weirdly, it's when we have conceded. I think the reaction we've got from that, where we've spent so long not conceding. The clean sheet record is fantastic, but actually, I think we've played some of us better stuff, and we've got this like almost anger that somebody's scored against us, that we end up just battering teams in the second half. We did it against QPR for a big spell. We did it against Millwall on Saturday as well. But yeah, really enjoyable. Thought it was superb. Again, we could have had so many more. They could have had a couple of extras. I did look back to April 2003 because I remembered us conceding 7 at home in 2 games. We lost 4-7 to Watford and 2-7 to Sheffield Wednesday in that month. I don't think if we'd have had a reverse of that, we'd have won 7-2 or 7-4. It would have probably been a fair reflection of the chances, clear-cut chances and, goals. And I don't think anyone would have had any kind of, complaints had we seen an absolute goal fest.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the second half. But first off, I mean, Millwall caused us some problems early on, Justin. I mean, they came to play. They wanted to get in the playoffs, and they gave us a really good going over in that first 20 minutes, especially.
Absolutely, they did. I thought they looked really good, particularly on the break. I think we were a bit more expansive going forward than we have been for a lot of this season. And they seem to be able to exploit that, particularly down their right-hand side, where they seem to be able to get between Esteve and Lucas Perez a little bit. But on the preview to this game, we were talking about how it should be a cracker because both teams have got something to play for, and quite often you put the mockers on a game by suggesting something like that. I think back to the Leeds game, which we all thought was going to be explosive, and it didn't really go off that one, did it? But this is how I've been wanting us to play. Aggressive, going forward, trying to score as many goals as we can. We didn't just go 2-1 up and then sit back and say, all right, come on, try and score against us again, which we have done, a few times this season. We really went for it, and it wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been unkind to them for us to have got a lot more than we did. But it was a great performance. I can't fault anybody, and the kind of football we were playing in that second half was extraordinary, and I really enjoyed that game in a way that I haven't enjoyed a lot of games this season.
Yeah, I mean, we'll put that performance in the context of the whole season during the week when we'll do another podcast with the full squad here and sort of review the whole campaign, because it has been a really interesting season from lots of points of view. But there were some performances there. It was Burnley, Parker Burnley at its best, Greavesy, wasn't it? And some key performances from individuals. Who caught your eye against Millwall?
Yeah, I mean, Anthony's the obvious one. He scored one. I think you put the tweet out yesterday saying, no bullshit, there's not anyone better in the world with a better first touch. I mean, the ball from Egan Riley is just incredible. The first touch to control it and take it past the fullback and then score. I mean, by that point, he should have been celebrating his hat-trick already. He had a chance first half off the line, put a couple of efforts straight at the keeper when he's, just needed to put his laces through it.
But I doesn't seem to have the full confidence, does he? Like when he goes, they're a bit timid.
No,
sort of
they are. Yeah, and a few players like that. I think Edwards is a couple of times when you're going, just shoot now. Go on, just shoot now, pal. Go on, give it a kick, just shoot. And he's moving it on, and he's just waiting. And it's maybe that's the next step of the evolution. And maybe I saw a brilliant Instagram post from Jane Anthony. He said something about the smile is back and something like that. And I think he has improved massively under Scott Parker. His decision making, his crossing ability, all of these things. The one thing he will be working on, I'm sure Parker and the coaching team have identified it, is once he's in front of goal, convert more of them chances, because it's not the first time we've said that. You know, I think there's been 2 or 3 games where we could have gone, he could have had a hat-trick. You know, he's missed 2 chances, he's done this, but he's getting in positions. Lucas Perez, I know Justin mentioned there, I thought they did cause him and Esteve a couple of problems. But again, in the context of the season, I thought Lucas Perez is, you know, really, when we were a bit worried when Bashir Humphreys got injured, he's really come into his own, end of his first season in English football. And then, of course, as main man, Hannibal, who's just, you know, and I think he's actually probably better suited to Premier League football, which he's not played a lot of. I think he's probably that energy in the Premier League. There's not many players have that kind of energy. But I know Justin's a huge fan, and I know he'll wax lyrical about, you know.
Go on, wax lyrical, Justin, because
our man Hannibal.
You have been a fan of Hannibal all season, and when some of us had our doubts about him, when Scott Park,
I think I called him a busy idiot, didn't I, on several occasions? And Justin, to be fair, defended him of that charge.
Yeah, well, like I said before, he's like a perpetual motion machine. He just keeps moving all the time, and moving the ball quickly when he gets it as well. And I think that period where we sort of play with Josh Laurent deeper and Brownill further forward, because we know he gets the goals from there. I mean, he's playing, Brownill's playing deeper and still scoring the goals, so that's not that problem on the head. But sitting in that number 10 role, he just keeps the ball moving, and sometimes the ball comes into him and he just knocks it back to whoever's giving it to him, but it changes the angles and it keeps the ball moving and it keeps pulling their defenders out of position. And I think, you know, we've talked a lot about Marcus Edwards making a big difference when he came into the side, in terms of moving us a little bit, turning us around and moving us a bit more towards goal. But I think Hannibal coming back into the side after that suspension he had, and really nailing down that number 10 spot and bringing that energy and bringing that sort of progressive thinking. It's always forward. It's not, you know, it's always there's always a point to it. It's not that aimless football that we were playing quite a lot, you know, in the middle part of the season. So I just think he was man of the match again yesterday, wasn't he? And quite rightly as well. I think he ran the game. You know, I think he's had a great season. I would like to see him create a bit more. And I think, like Anthony, he can be a bit shy in front of goal. He had a couple of opportunities yesterday where it was either he didn't get his shot off all, or it was a really sort of tame one straight at the keeper. So, you know, but, you know, if he starts... If he could create stuff and score a lot of goals in the sort of Brownill way, he wouldn't be playing for us, would he? He'd still be playing for you. He'd still at United, wouldn't he? But, you know, I think he's great, and I'm looking forward to seeing him playing in the Premier League. I think he's got something to prove there, and hopefully he'll continue to improve.
I mean, the thing people at United said about him was that, there's never been any question about his ability, his technical ability. It was all about whether he had the right mental approach for the game and so on. Can't really have any complaints on that front. I mean, you know, maybe Scott Parker has worked on that with him. Again, another thing to sort of reflect on perhaps over the next few episodes. But Greavesy, talking of people sort of being perhaps a bit critical of a player earlier in the season and then having to eat some humble pie, I mean... Josh Brownill has ghosted his way to how many goals this season? I mean, it's been an incredible effort from him, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I was at it again yesterday when he lined up that free kick. I said to my mate Toby, who I said, one more Josh Brownill free kick into the wall to end the season. Then he made me look like a right dick by popping it in.
Couldn't let it go, could you?
I couldn't. You know what I mean? You know what I'm like. But yeah, humble pie for Josh Brownill, humble pie for Scott Parker, probably humble pie for Hannibal, but no meat and tater pie on the turf yesterday, which was a big disappointment. But yeah, captain's performance again yesterday. Honestly, I just, you know, and Justin touched on it there. We were kind of, if we play Hannibal, then Brownhill's no good because he has to play deeper. I think we've solved that conundrum. And what I'd also like, just touching on Hannibal, I'll come back on to Brownill. What I like is it's almost a relay between him and Laurent. Because once he's knackered, they bring Laurent on. He's just got this drive, this energy, that kind of, you know, these bursts, these lung busters to try and get to the byline and stick a cross in, which is fantastic. But I think the way them two play allows Brownill to do his thing, because he could trust Josh Cullen. He knows Cullen's there just mopping up, picking up, you know, going down under a challenge if we're under pressure, picking the ball up, putting a cruncher in, and Brownill gets to, you know, do what he does best, which is finding space between the lines and things like that. And I actually think again, we keep praising the coaching staff, but that is something they'll be working on. Well, look, we've got to find a way of playing Brownill and Hannibal. It's the old Lampard-Gerrard conundrum that England managers struggled with for years on a smaller scale. But it's, if you don't work on that and you don't go, right, well, if I'm here and you're in my position, where do I go? You don't see the results that we've seen this season, which is a central midfielder. And I think I put something in our WhatsApp group. Brownhill scored more goals this season than we've conceded.
It's one of them stats, is that, isn't it?
From midfield. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I saw that on Twitter. I think it was Turf Talk, I think it was. And you just go, what a season. He's the second top goal scorer in the Championship. He's got a cracking number of assists as well. And he still didn't get into the team of the season. I was talking to a couple of lads at football this morning who aren't Burnley fans who said, how's he not got in that team of the season? You're talking to some Leeds fans who went, it should either be him or Pirou for player of the season, maybe James, maybe, Trafford. Everyone could agree, and I know we touched on this, but how's he not in that team of the season?
Well, it was interesting on the American coverage on CBS. They had Nigel Reo-Coker as the studio pundit, who made that point about the team of the season, and then just goes, to be honest, team of the season. I don't know. There was even a discussion about Brownill. He said he should be the player of the season for the AFL. And the panel there, the other people on the panel all agreed with him, and as did this viewer in Miami. I mean, Justin, it's been, we look for signs, don't we, on these final games of the season, and there's Ashley Barnes is out of contract, Josh Brownhill's out of contract, CJ Egan-Riley's still out of contract, isn't he? With Brownill, there just seems to be a feeling that maybe this was a farewell. Any signs of that yesterday, body language-wise and all the rest of it?
Yeah, I don't... It's so difficult to read into that sort of thing. He did take his shirt off when he scored that second goal, didn't he? And but I don't know. I mean, you get the impression, don't you, that they're not trying not to give it any thought until the end of the season happens, and discussions aren't happening until the end of the season. And there's only really one reason to do that, isn't there? And that's to sort of say, well, we'll wait and see what offers come in, and And you can't, I mean, how old is he now? 27, 28? So he's kind of looking at sort of maybe getting the last possible big move, It's a bit like the Tarkowski situation when he went to Everton, isn't it? He's kind of sort of thinking, well, if I sign a 3-year contract somewhere, I'm going to be in my 30s by the time that's up. If I sign another 3 years at Burnley, will I get another opportunity? So I don't blame them for waiting to see what's on offer. I think from the club's perspective, I don't think they'll be glad to see him go. I think they'll be trying to persuade him to stay. Both of those two players you mentioned there, CJ Egan-Riley and Brownill, we don't want to see them go for no money, do we, for a start? But and I think both those players would be very expensive to replace if we don't get money for them. Yeah. So I think work will be underway already to try and persuade them to stay. And they're both going to play a big part, aren't they? That's the big attraction. They're not. If they stay at Burnley, they're going to be in the team next season. They're going to be playing Premier League football week in, week out. If they go somewhere else, that might not happen. They might, sort of be second string to somebody else. But I don't know. I think it's important that we try and keep this team together and learn from the lessons from the last time we went into the Premier League. So I would hope the club will have that high on the agenda as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And
I think with Brownill, I think, he's 29. I just checked, and
29.
Why would you go to Rangers as a 29-year-old? You could go to Rangers as a 33-year-old and still win stuff and still play Champions League football. I think he's got something to prove in the English Premier League. I think there's a lot of people who don't think he can make that step up, but I think Simon, you've said before, I think he's improved massively, and I think he's improved under Scott Parker, and I think he's improved probably more under Scott Parker than any other manager he's worked at Burnley or Bristol City. And I think if I was him, and it's easy having Clarets tinted spectacles, I'd be wanting to kind of show people what I can do in the Premier League for a club that's a little bit unfancied, but for a manager who I've already stated on another podcast is the best manager he's worked under.
That could be the key, couldn't it? That could be the key.
That could be the key. And Parker said in his press conference the other week that he was confident that Egan, Riley and Brownill would sign new deals. Now, that he's not plucked that out of thin air. You know what he's like. Whenever he gets asked about anything, he's pretty non-committal as managers go, is Scott Parker. So I wonder whether, I did think the same yesterday, whether it felt like a farewell. Barnes a little bit felt like a farewell, but again, I'd give him a year deal or some kind of role to keep him there to guide the lads, because that's what we were missing. We marginalised the likes of Jack Cork under company, and I don't think that helped us at all when the going got tough. So yeah, Brownill, listen, if Man United come along, and they're not going to do, but if a Man United come along, or a Chelsea or a Spurs or whoever, you might kind of go, that's a good move. If I'm his agent and Rangers are offering, probably what we would offer wages-wise, but offer Champions League football, I'd be going, why not visit that next summer? Sign a 2-year deal and visit in 2 years. You'll only be 31, 32. You'll still be, he'll play in Scotland until he's 38, 39. He'll be doing a Scotty Arfield or a Ashley Westwood. You know what I mean? He doesn't need to rush into, signing on a free for a Premier League club where he's not guaranteed a start. He's not going to be club captain.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, saying he's improved, let me be a bit more specific about that, because I think under Scott Parker, he's gone from being a midfielder who would have the odd attacking moment in a game where he always scored goals in the Championship, but not as many as this, obviously. But it would be like just out of the blue, he would a screamer or get round the back now and then. Now it's systematic what he's doing. He's playing that position. We've compared him to Brian Robson. With the timing of those runs. Lampard is another one. He's that kind of player now. He's got that ability to break the lines, to appear in difficult positions. That, in the Premier League, that is really valuable, because, you hear the experts say it's the game between the lines that matters, and he's somebody who plays like that. Under the Dyche team, we didn't really have players who played between the lines. Hendrick was perhaps the only one, and he wasn't quite good enough to do that. Brownill can do that, and he's got better and better. He's clinical as a finisher now. He's full of confidence. He knows what his role in the team is. This is his team, and he's never quite made that step up to the Premier League in the past. He's been typecast as one of those players who's a really good one in the Championship, not quite good enough for the Premier League. This is his chance to go in there at 28, 29 years of age and say, I am a Premier League player, and I can score 17 goals in the Championship. I can go and score 10 in the Premier League as well. And I think that's a brilliant opportunity. And it'd be such a shame to see him do that for another club, or not do it and go abroad or to Rangers or somewhere. So I really hope they get that sorted out. I do. CJ Egan-Riley, obviously, it would be great to keep on board as well. Barnes, that's an interesting one, Justin, isn't it? Because we can all see the impact he has around the team. And I've been derogatory about it, in some
you called
ways.
It a PR, an expensive PR.
You can't carry a mascot on the team and stuff, but you can see as the season goes on the importance. He didn't know half of these players from his previous spell, and he's come in and he's a central figure around them and so on. But I just wonder, if you make someone like that a member of the coaching staff, maybe you lose that bond anyway. Because now he's the gaffer's man. So if you want that influence, perhaps you have to keep him on as a player, even if he's not going to play much.
Yeah, maybe. He hasn't played much, has he? That's the bottom line. Since he came back, he hasn't played that much, and you can't. He started on Saturday mainly because, obviously there were two people in that position in front of him, and neither of them were available for selection from the start because of injuries and the loan rules. So, but I think you're right. I think he does seem to have had a massive impact. The little behind the scenes films that they put out on YouTube. You can see how well liked he is by a lot of the players. That episode about him coming back was, everybody was delighted to see him. Gave the place a real lift. And we complained a little bit about company. Jettisoning that sort of experience. You mentioned Jack Cork before being sidelined, and that was something that we identified as having gone wrong that season, wasn't it? It was kind of that those players who'd been there and done it and had that Premier League experience, under their belt, that were kind of marginalised a little bit. It seemed from the outside looking in. So when you've got a player like that at your disposal, even though he's not going to play, I mean, he's useful in certain situations, certain circumstances. Plays with his back to goal, so he can hold things up a little bit. If you're under pressure at the end of the game, trying to hold on to something, he's an ideal man to come on and do that, isn't he? Even in the Premier League. So I'm. When you first mentioned it earlier on, I thought that's ridiculous. There's no way they're going to give him another year. But it does kind of make some
in a way,
some strange sort of sense. Just have him around. I don't know about maybe a player coach role, something like that. He's if he's not going to play that much, he wants to be working with the players in some way, doesn't he? So yeah, it sort of makes a little bit of sense now.
It does, I think, yeah, and. We don't need another Ashley Barnes farewell video, do we? We don't need that. No,
well, we're still waiting for part 2 of the first one, aren't we? Really?
Yeah,
we were promised part 2 and never got it. So
yeah, let's talk a little bit about at the stadium. You guys were there. I'm watching it on television. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see everything that happened after the game because they cut the feed and went straight to Rovers not getting into the playoffs positions. That's what they chose to give Burnley fans seconds after the disappointment of seeing the title slip out of our grasp. But a lot went on after the game. Greavesy, what was the scene like once the final whistle had gone?
Yeah, it was a bit weird to begin with because we had this huge security presence, making sure nobody was getting on the pitch this time after the shenanigans after the Sheffield United game, which I think at one point there were 3 lines of stewards between some of the stands and the pitch, plus some police officers. And yeah, so that kind of took the sting out of everything. Then we had a massive wait, as we often do with these things, while they brought a kind of cheap-looking podium out for the lads to stand behind. And at that point, they were setting up some speakers, so we knew what was coming, even though they hadn't told us what was coming, or I'd guessed that we were going to see Natasha Bedingfield. And yeah, everything just went a bit flat because while they were switching the speakers over, there was no music, there was no announcements, there was no kind of indication as to how long it would be before the players would come back out. But these things are always just a bit shit, aren't they, at the end of the season when when the officials are involved and you've got to get Rick Parry and some other no-mark from the EFL out, and Alan Pace brought the trophy out, which is quite nice for second place. But yeah, just a bit, it all felt a bit flat really. It just needed something, perhaps telling us that we were going to get a bit of a pop concert would have helped and may have kept a few people behind, because I think people just got bored of waiting, and it wasn't empty by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly a good 5,000 or 6,000 Burnley fans had exited stage left by that point.
I just want to check something, Justin. Are you aware now that it is a criminal offence to enter the field of play?
Yes, I am, and I'll tell you why. Because my friend with the on the PA system at Turf Moor, who's been my nemesis all year, I just wish it doesn't need to be turned up to 11, does it? 7 will do. You can't have a conversation at half time with a guy sat next to you because of his running commentary on the what's it called? The thing where they kick the ball halfway towards the halfway line and miss the target by miles every time.
Spot kick or whatever it's called.
On the spot or whatever it's called.
On the spot, yeah.
Yeah, he decided. I mean, the heavy-handed stewarding it was one thing, but while the game was actually going on, for the last 5 minutes at least, while the tension was at its highest, because everybody was trying to, puzzle out what was going on in the Leeds game and thinking, Christ, this could actually happen today. The thing that we dreamt about last night might actually come true. Literally every 30 seconds, he was barking out, "It is a criminal offence to go on the playing surface," and I was thinking, now, really, do you think there's anybody in this stadium who doesn't know that it's a criminal offence to go on the pitch, or who didn't know it was a criminal offence when they did it after the Sheffield United game? So that kind of honestly killed the atmosphere a little bit. The tension was rising, and obviously when that goal went in, the balloon was popped. And then as Greasy said, the heavy-handed stewarding at the end. You know, there were hundreds of stewards surrounding the entire pitch, and then on the final whistle, you know, this crack team of stewards appeared from nowhere, raced onto the pitch and manhandled all the players into a little sort of section just in front of the Bob Lord stand to protect them from nobody, because there was nobody out on the pitch. They were visibly trying to escape the manhandling, just to try and, you know, shake hands with a few Millwall players to congratulate them on a great game, like they do at the end of every game. They weren't even able to do that. It just seemed so ridiculous. So that the guy on the PA system and the heavy-handed stewarding really killed the atmosphere for me. Now I also remember when we won the title with Vincent Kompany. That last game of that last season was the same. It's not the Super Bowl halftime show, is it? You know, that day it was a little bit colder than this. I think it might have even been
drizzly, very drizzly.
Bit drizzly. The players sort of seemed to spend more time chatting with the wives and the kids who were playing on the pitch, and you know, there was no real sense of connection with the players or anything like that. And really, they didn't really do anything. There was nothing organised. Obviously, this time there was something organised. Unluckily for me, I thought to myself, this is just going to be a shambles. We're all going to stand here for 20 minutes. The players are going to come out, maybe do a lap of honour, and then disappear. So I went home, but I missed. So I missed the main event, which Greaves is going to have to tell us about, because I didn't
tell us about it, Natasha. The Natasha show.
Bedingfield. Yeah. So, I mean, I joked, I think, on our preview, because I think somebody said, what do you want? And I said, what I want is I want Natasha Bedingfield singing that song. And we got it. And it's not for everybody. And I know Daz is not so well today, so he's not joined us. I know he absolutely hated it. Hated every second of it. But you know what? I'm going to hold my hands up. I've taken the piss out of Russell Ball for the last 2 seasons. Now, if he's had a hand in getting Natasha Bedingfield to Turf Moor, then I doff my cap to Bobby Ball, because I thought it was incredibly good fun, right? You know, this anthem that the players have, I don't know who chose it, right? We know footballers have terrible, terrible taste in music these days. And that song and Natasha Bedingfield is not anything that I would usually listen to. You know what? It's been in my head for most of the last few weeks since the club started posting videos of players celebrating using it. I've had it on in the car today, running errands, singing along. And you know what? I thought it was fantastic. And fair fucks to whoever at Burnley went, could we get Natasha Bedingfield? Could we? And fair fucks to Alan Pace, who's gone, how much is it going to cost? Yes, we'll sign off on it. We're often critical, right? And sometimes we come across and we get criticised for being critical because Chris Borden didn't get an interview with Alan Pace 4 years ago. Here's me now saying, you know what? Sometimes the chairman spots an opportunity, and look at the content. We've all said the dressing room video of her singing with the players, and, you know, Connor Roberts doing his dance and all of that lot. The Benny and Ots with Scott Parker. You know, the fun that you saw the kids having. I'm sat with my mate and his dad's, and we're clapping along, and we're doing the arms to the other song that she sings, what I keep forgetting the name of. Listen, it's not for everybody, but, you know, bugger me. What a reward for the lads. What a great way for them to celebrate.
Yeah. I think from that point of view. I mean, I do think, to be fair, we have given particular mockery to Russell Ball. He's head of fan engagement. You would think this has come under his remit. So I think we should just have a little ripple for Bobby Ball. But I mean,
but he still fucked the pie order up. So there we go.
I showed the clip. The content is good. I showed the clip of her on the field. They put it out as a full performance video and stuff. And I showed it my wife, who's not got any interest at all really in football, but she knows what Burnley is, obviously, and what it's all about. And she thought it was great as well. It is good, wholesome content, as the phrase goes now.
And it's getting us a lot of attention. You know, the Sun and the Mirror have both done stories today, I've noticed, in terms of, you know, EFL runners-up celebrate with Naughty's icon and all this. And it's, you know what? It's a bit of fun, isn't it? But if you listen to the lyrics, I'm not going to get old deep. If you look at the lyrics, and the club put the lyrics out, which again pisses a lot of people off, and they think it's cringe and all this lot. But, you know, stop being so bloody miserable. My message to them curmudgeon old bastards.
Well, we're going off brand here, badly.
Well, no, listen, I'm all for it. The rest is unwritten, pal. The rest is unwritten. But if you look at the lyrics, that you can see why the players have perhaps grabbed that. After Sunderland, the rest was unwritten, right? You can do what you can do, but you don't know what's coming next. And really, right up until injury time in the Burnley game and in the Leeds game, the rest was unwritten.
Oh, Greaves is working on his storyboard here, isn't he, for this
You know what I mean?
season video?
Even I'm not going to be down about it. I'm quite sad. I'm quite sad I missed it.
You missed a cracker.
To be honest, I have watched the video back afterwards. The only trick they missed really was she had a Burnley shirt on under her jacket, didn't she?
Yeah, and didn't reveal it until about 15 minutes into her performance.
Yeah, but I wanted her to take that jacket off and have Bedingfield on the back, number 9, or I would have been straight in the club shop for one of those.
Yeah.
She's a Southerner, though, so she might have been cold. Cold.
Yeah. Interestingly, we forgot to mention this with Brownill. Benson came out in the Brownill 8 shirt, turned the wrong way around. Says he's marching onto the pitch in his sunglasses and his hat with his medal around. He has Josh's shirt on back to front. It has Brownill 8 up front.
Bit of an unfortunate situation with. I'm not quite sure why they decided to announce Mike Trezor to the crowd, but there were some boos apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, I joked when your mate on the mic was announcing each one, I kept shouting, Mike Trezor! And then all of a sudden we heard, Mike Trezor! And I was a bit like, oh, this is a bit... I have to say, the people around me in the North Upper were clapping. We'll perhaps get on to... I think Mike Trezor is probably worth a 2-hour episode on his own, isn't he? But
definitely.
What I would say is probably, there is no way Scott Parker is having Mike Trezor coming out and being announced one by one if there's anything untoward happen this season, is what I would say. I've tried my best to kind of speak to his agent and continue to try and speak, get through to his people to find out what the story is. I don't know. We were told he was ill last summer. It's a disappointing, we've cheered players who haven't even made the matchday squad or have made 1 or 2 matchday squads. And I don't know, listen, maybe that redemption arc that we keep talking about will come for Trezor. I hope it does, but yeah, maybe, I don't know. I wonder whether they were going to announce like your goalkeeping department and they all come out, and then your defensive team and they all come out. And I don't know, it just felt a bit weird for 1 or 2 people. I think it was a minority, to be fair. Just a little ripple of boos when you think we don't know the full story. We might never know the full story.
We don't know the full story, and we would like to know the full story. And to be honest, when things like that happen, it happens because we don't know the story and people draw their own conclusions, don't they? It would be great to get to the bottom of it sometime. And of course, if Mike or his agent want to come on the podcast and talk about it, especially if he's staying at the club, that would probably help explain a little bit to people. But let's not end on a negative. I mean, there's some great scenes, though, with that team. I mean, the bond, Justin, that team has, and some of the players have talked about it. It always seems to be the case with a promoted team that there's a chemistry there, but it does for a team that was thrown together off the back of a fag packet almost at the end of the transfer window. They do seem to have created a really special bond.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see that both on and off the pitch in the videos we've already talked about, and the way that they play together. And that strength maybe has been born out of that adversity. Maybe they talked a lot at the time about the uncertainty about which of the players in the dressing room were going to be there the day after. Towards the end of that transfer window, I think Esteve was the one who said, "Oh, you're just looking around the dressing room thinking who's still going to be here this time next week," and it's very difficult in those situations to galvanise a team. But when you look at the rubble that's left behind after that wrecking ball came through the club, that's when that sort of coming together happens, isn't it? And they thought, right, this is what we've got to work with. Let's build from here and let's move forward. All the ones who wanted to go have gone. We want to be here. We want to make a team out of this, and they certainly had the right manager to help them piece that together. It's been that's been the extraordinary story of the season, hasn't it? That building that out of what they were given to work with after the transfer window has closed, to get to 100 points. I don't think any of us would have predicted that, and it's just an extraordinary achievement that ought to live long in our memories.
And it will do. And we'll look back on it all during the week. Do follow us on social media or subscribe to our different channels, including our YouTube channel now that we're starting to put more content on as well from the Be All End podcast. That way you'll know what days we're coming out, because it's during the summer. It's going to be a little bit different. We'll be putting out some content during the week perhaps. So do start to follow and subscribe, and that content comes straight to you. But we are going to do a review of the season. We're going to be, during the summer, getting some different guests on to look at all things Claret and Blue. And of course, the transfer window mill will soon be upon us, and there'll be plenty to talk about as well. So we're not going anywhere. Do have a good few days until we talk to you again soon, and up the Clarets.